Welcome back. In this video series, this is an introduction video about the new video series about project management, and this is based on the Project Management Institute project management body of knowledge. So especially for the one people who are preparing for project management professional certification. So this is a 360-degree view about the different aspects related to project management. So in this topic, in this video series, we'll discuss different aspects related to this, and there are 25 videos in the series. We'll talk about basic concepts of project management like project, program, portfolio, organizational related information, how project teams are organized, project lifecycle, and we'll discuss 5 different process areas and 9 different knowledge areas according to the PMI defined project management process. Stay tuned for more videos. Welcome back. In the first video, we'll talk about what is the definition of a project and how is a project different from operation. So this is a general misconception among many people, and there is no clear understanding between what is a project and what are operations. A project by definition is a temporary endeavor with a beginning and a clear end. So that means at the end of the project, there is a clear deliverable. So let it be a unique product, service, or result. Whereas an operation is the work being done either to support a business or existing system. So, for example, like in your private life, eating, sleeping, paying your bills, they are all operations. However, if you design to make a PMP certification within a particular time frame, so that can be considered as a project. So, the project work focus on a clear and discrete result, output, service, or a product. Stay tuned for more videos. In the second video, we'll also clarify another important concept. This is the difference between project, program, and portfolio. So I'll try to explain with some example, the difference, and finally also with a table to visualize what are the key differences. So in the first part of this video, we'll discuss about project and program. A project is, for example, building a house. So the characteristics are it is temporary and with a fixed start and end date, creates a defined product or service, is performed by people, and is bounded by budget, schedule, and requirements. A program, on the other hand, can be a collection of similar or related projects. For example, like a villa project with similar or connected houses. So a group of similar or related projects coordinated together, projects regulated to achieve a common goal, and focusing on optimizing or achieving a strategic goal and profitability. Stay tuned for the next video. In previous video, we discussed about the difference between project and programs, and in this video, we'll talk about portfolio. Portfolio, for example, can be creating a city infrastructure. So it involves a group of programs and or different projects within the same company. So where projects and programs are focusing on deliverables, the portfolio usually focused on strategic goals, return of investment, and utilization rate, also the earned value. So here's a table to summarize what we discussed so far. A project is a temporary endeavor for creating a unique output, and then it focuses on deliverables and it is time bound. Program is the next in the hierarchy, related projects coordinated together, achieving business targets, focuses on benefits, also time bound. However, portfolio is a collection of programs and projects focusing on strategic goals, focus on objectives, and it need not be time bound. Stay tuned for next video. In this video, we'll talk about organizational project management. So that's even though there is a textbook approach towards project management, how it is actually realized in different organizations are not the same. So that's the focus on organizational project management. So OPM acts on guideline to manage projects, programs, portfolio, and for companies to focus on the overall strategy. So this need not be the same for companies working in different domains or regions or different industries. So it focuses on following aspects in prioritizing, managing, and executing and measuring projects. So some examples or some parameters in this are the organizational structure, the interdependencies between products and processes, budget management process, resource management process, stakeholder management process, change management process. As you can imagine, in different industries, in different domains, in different departments, this can be different. Stay tuned for the next videos. In this video, we'll talk about project management office. Although it's not mandatory for organizations to have project management office, big organizations and corporates have project management office due to following reasons. to have centralized management structure so that all projects are managed in a standard way, and also the standardized management process so that the industry standards for project management are followed and updated on a regular basis. So basically, there are three types in the increasing order of influence on the project team. The supportive type, where there is low level of control, like a consulting. They supply templates, processes, and can't dictate or enforce anything. Controlling, like they have moderate control, like regular monitoring. They supply also tools, processes, and training, and enforces compliance of organizational practices. Directive, which is the highest influence level, has a very high level of control on projects. Project managers are reporting to PMO, and PMO directly manages the project. Stay tuned. In this video, we'll talk about a very important concept. This is called stakeholders. So this is the reason why it's important is if it is not considered properly from the beginning until the end of the project. So this can be one of the reasons why you can fail in your project. And it is the responsibility of project manager to keep engaging with the stakeholders at different levels for the success of the project. So stakeholders could be people or organizations. So people like your sponsor, your project team, or anyone who is impacted by the project. And organizations like your organization, client, or regulatory bodies, or even public organizations. So they might have a positive or negative impact on your project. So it's definitely important to consider both. And they might have influence on the complete deliverables or even a part of the project. So it's very important to know and understand them and also engage with them during the project for achieving the success. Stay tuned. In the previous video, we talked about stakeholders and its importance, and this video will talk about how to engage your stakeholders during a project. So you can plot them in the power interest matrix. So the high power, high interest are your sponsors or investors. So the engagement is you have to manage them very closely. So there could be low power, low interest like general public who are not really interested in your project, however, could have some impact. So of course you keep them monitoring, but not as actively as the high power, high interest. On the high power, low interest are, for example, the regulatory bodies who are not directly involved, but if they don't approve your project can be a failure. So you have to keep them satisfied. Finally, the low power, high interest. So these are the NGO bodies or the public authorities. So they might also have an indirect influence. So keep them informed. Stay tuned for the next video. In this video, we talk about organizational structure. So this is another very important concept in project management because the way a project is managed and the influence of project manager and other managers on the project is basically defined by the organizational structure. So basically, a functional organization is where the project manager has least authority because the functional managers have the control over the resources. And a projectized organization is where the project manager has complete authority of the project. And there are also intermediate organizational structures like weak metrics, balanced metrics, and strong metrics. So in this table, the different characteristics and the authority of project manager for in each organization are described. So I'm not going one by one, but please refer to this table and also please check in internet resources because this topic is need to be understood very deeply before we can continue with the next videos. Stay tuned. In this video, we'll talk about two important concepts in project management. This is the organizational process assets and enterprise environmental factors. So organizational process assets are your resources that company offers you. That what makes the project management unique and different in different organizations. So this includes the processes, procedures, and policies that the organization follow, and also the corporate knowledge base and historical information that activities that the organization is doing, lessons learned, and the good practices that the companies are following. And finally, also the work performance data, information, and reports that the organization is creating. The second is the enterprise environmental factors. So these are the soft or the cultural aspects in the company. So both these are very important for project managers to define the scope of the project and to make a smooth execution of the project to success. Stay tuned. This video is the last part in the project management fundamental section. In the next sections, we'll discuss more deeply about the process of project management. So a project life cycle is a logical breakdown of actions to create a particular deliverable, so let it be a service, product, or anything that this project wants to deliver. So there are different types. So a plan-driven, so the waterfall type, this is a traditional approach to project management. And recently the agile type is also, the change-driven agile type is also getting more and more attention, especially in the software and IT industries. Finally, there is the adaptive lifecycle type project management where the time and cost is defined, but the scope will evolve over time. So the basic workflow or the different phases of life cycle are described here. So we'll see one by one in detail in the next video. Stay tuned. In the second part of the video series, we talk about different project process groups according to the project management body of knowledge. So first one is the initiation. So there are 5. So initiation is the process. So the focus is to create this is the first step in starting a new project. So the purpose of initiation is to establish why you're doing the project and what business value it will deliver. So the key activities involved in the initiation process are selecting a project manager, defining project processes and organizational related factors, break down the project phases, understand business case, define high-level requirements and deliverables, create measurable objectives, and the key deliverable in this phase are developing a project charter, the project charter itself, and identifying stakeholders and creating a stakeholder engagement matrix. The next phase is planning. Stay tuned. The second process group is planning. So planning, as you can imagine, is one of the most important phase of the project, because if you make a mistake here or if you forget to consider something here, you can end up having not achieving your project goals or a total failure of the project. So the planning phase tries to create a road mapping process for the whole project. And it's also this phase where you make a detailed plan to get buy-in and approval from all related stakeholders. And therefore it is one of the most important phases of the project. The key activities include define project scope, create complete layout of project execution, including schedule, cost, risk, resources, or your buy or make decisions. And finally, the main outcome of the planning process is to perform. We already talked about the first two process groups, initiation and planning, and from the next phase execution. And from this stage on, it's difficult to discretely differentiate between the planning and execution process because it goes hand in hand with each other. So execution starts immediately after we have the buy-in or approval from the stakeholders, especially the sponsor or the investors of this project. So the key activities include execute the project according to the plan, managing team, implementing changes, use issue log, report project performance, manage stakeholders, give recognition and awards, hold regular follow-up meetings and reporting, perform quality audits, gather performance and data to perform Kaizen. So the reason why there is a planning involved is we always keep monitoring the project and reflect the improvement points onto the project as on the fly as the project is being executed. Next phase is monitoring and controlling. Stay tuned. In the previous sections, we already talked about initiation, planning, and execution. So the fourth project process group is monitoring and controlling. So monitoring and controlling is something that you do throughout the execution of the project. And so therefore it is part of both planning and executing process. The purpose of this is to make sure that the project is going according to the plan and it will deliver the deliverables which is agreed upon in the beginning of the project. So the key activities in monitoring and controlling include tracking and measuring the project performance, request and perform change management, because of course there might be changes from different stakeholders during the project and it need to be monitored and executed according to the rolling wave planning process, and manage project resource and risk, get approval for interim deliverables, and controlling the quality related throughout the project. The next phase is closing. Stay tuned. And the final process group is project closing. So project closing is the last part of the project life cycle. Therefore, it is equally important as the project planning. So the most important output from this is to confirm that the completion of deliverables, then also get buy-in from the stakeholders, and complete final reporting, index and archiving records, lessons learned and update knowledge base, closing contracts, budget, and team. So you can imagine if this process group is not taken seriously, it can lead to major flaws in the project management process. We already discussed about organizational process assets. So therefore, this is one of the most important phase of the project. Stay tuned for the next videos. The third part of the project management series is about project knowledge areas, and we'll start with the project integration management. So project integration management is a glue that holds a project together. So how you integrate the different parts of a project together to make the outputs that is expected. So the key activities include develop project charter. So in brackets you can see in which process group it belongs. It's in the initiation process. Develop project management plan in the planning process. Direct and manage project work. Manage project knowledge areas. Monitoring and controlling. Perform change management process and close projects or phase. So all these are the activities that are done part of project integration management. So as you can see, all the way from initiation until closing, this is the glue that holds the project together. Stay tuned for the next video. The second knowledge area according to the PM book is project scope management. Scope management deals with everything that must be completed in order to meet the product requirements. One important concept in scope management is the scope creep. So this is the continuous and uncontrolled increase in the scope of the project, which can lead to high cost or increasing the project timeline. So this must be controlled in the project. The key activities in scope management include plan scope, so it and collect requirements, define scope, and create WBS. So they are all part of the planning process. WBS is the acronym for work breakdown structure. And finally, once the in the execution phase is to validate the scope, and in the monitoring and control phase is to control the scope. Stay tuned for the next videos. The next project knowledge area is project schedule management. Sometimes it's also described as project time management. The schedule management is, from a conventional point of view, seen as the most important part of project management. However, it's just one of the knowledge areas. So schedule management establishes the management of schedule throughout the life of the project. So one of the key term in project schedule management is goal plating. So goal plating is when the scope of the project is being increased or low value added task is being done by the team, but not by the client request, but by the team decision. So this leads to increasing cost and difficulties to meet the timeline. So key activities include plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate duration, and develop schedule. And all of them belong to the planning process group, and also controlling the schedule during the monitoring and control process. Next project knowledge area is project quality management. So quality management focuses on the quality of the end product or any deliverables that is part of the product, and also processes and how the processes are carried out, and if it is carried out efficiently according to organizational policies and procedures. So a general misconception is quality management only deals with the output of the product, which is not true, because the process followed and the different policies that the organization is supposed to follow and industry standards, all of them are part of the quality management process. The key activities include planning quality management itself, and then managing the quality during the execution and controlling the quality during the monitoring and control phase. The next project knowledge area is project cost management. So needless to say, this is one of the most important knowledge area in project management, and this deals with the processes that are required to maintain a financial control of projects. So the key activities in the cost management process include planning the cost management, so budget, so creating a budget, getting buy-in from the stakeholders, estimating costs. So there are different processes for estimating costs, and then creating a budget, so determine the budget. And finally, that you have to monitor and make sure that your project is proceeding according to the planned pace, and also the costs that are incurred are in accordance with the plan. If not, you have to adapt it and even consider implementing changes to regain the momentum. The next project knowledge area is project resource management. So resource management is the process of planning, organizing, scheduling, and managing a project's resources. So normally the first thing that comes to everyone's mind when it talks about resources is human resources, but the reality is there are many different resources that a manager should plan to make sure they are coming in line as in a sequence that he planned to make sure that the deliverables can be developed according to the availability of the resources, and therefore and also optimizing this in the most efficient way to control cost and schedule is also very important. So in resource management, the activities include planning resource management, estimating activity resources, they are part of the planning process, and as part of execution, acquire resources, develop a team and manage the team, and finally monitoring in the control resources in the monitoring and control process. The next project knowledge area is project communication management. This may appear as the most easy knowledge area in a project. However, in reality, this can be the most difficult, of course, depending on your team structure and the organizational policies. But this is equally important as the other project areas. So project communication management includes processes that help to make sure the right messages are sent, received, and understood by the right people. So this will help you to get the buy-in and also the approval from the right stakeholders at the right time. So key activities include planning communications management and manage communication in the project execution phase and monitoring and controlling communication. The next knowledge area is project risk management. So this is needless to say, all part of the very important in a project that you have a good control or have a grip on the risk which are identified in the early phase of the project, and you monitor them and make mitigation plan or avoidance plan or recovery plan in case if one of these risks are realized in the project. So this is the process of identifying, analyzing, and responding to any risks that arise over the lifetime of the project. The important thing is risk can be both positive and negative. So normally we consider more strongly the negative risk, but it's equally important to consider positive risks. The key activities include planning risk management, identifying risk, perform qualitative analysis, perform quantitative analysis, plan risk responses. All of these are part of the planning process group. Implementing risk responses during the execution phase and monitoring risks in the monitoring and control phase. The next knowledge area is project procurement management. In some organizations, especially in the manufacturing context, sometimes can be disconnected and this could be part of the industrialization team, maybe not really the project team. However, this is still part of the project management process according to PMI PM book. So procurement management is the process of managing and optimizing a project's budget as it applies to goods, services, and resources you'll need to complete your project. So as you can imagine, it's closely linked with the project cost management activities. Key activities include planning procurement management, basically the make or buy decisions, conduct procurement, and also control procurement during the monitoring and control phase. The ninth and the last project knowledge area is project stakeholder management. So we discussed earlier when we discussed about fundamental project management concept, how important is stakeholder management. Because if you ignore a stakeholder or if you did not understand the expectations from a stakeholder from the beginning of the project, this can lead to a complete failure of the project and even non-acceptance from the related stakeholders. So this is the process of organizing communication with stakeholders and managing stakeholder expectations throughout the project, not just at the beginning of the project. So the key activities include identifying stakeholder, plan stakeholder engagement, manage stakeholder engagement, and monitor stakeholder engagement during the monitoring and control process.